In old Japan, there was a custom of seppuku ritual suicide and decapitation. At that time, there was a person called the Kaishaku, second or assistant who was responsible for cutting off the criminal's head. That figure was the chief executioner, known as Yamada Asaemon. Yamada Asaemon, the executioner. This name, Yamada Asaemon, was not actually a personal name, but a title inherited by the family through 9 generations, meaning every single one of them was called Yamada Asaemon. I will share a few episodes about Yamada Asaemon, but to avoid confusion, I will refer to all of them simply as Yamada Asaemon. The family name Yamada Asaemon is said to have been adopted by the first head, Sadatake, around the Shoho era, 1644-1648. It continued for about 240 years, until decapitation was abolished in 1882. Meiji 15 and the 9th head, Yoshifusa, retired. In short, the person who carried on the role of Kaishaku, or executioner, through generations of his family was Yamada Asaemon. Today, I'd like to explain what kind of hardships that person faced, and what kind of life they lived. It is said that this family, across all generations, performed approximately 2,400 decapitations. This is the recorded number, so the actual figures presumed to be much higher. While they are referred to as chief executioners or death penalty officials, they had an official job title. That was the Otameshi Goyo, official sword testing duty, the duty of testing how well newly crafted swords and presentation swords could cut. Furthermore, the Yamada Asaemon family held the formidable position of Tokusen Gohaido Otameshi Goyo, official sword testing duty for the shogunate's personal blades, making them the sole experts authorized to test the swords of the Tokugawa Shogunate. They were, in essence, the supreme sword testers of Japan. However, while this Otameshi Goyo role was fundamentally performed by the family, or a limited number of officials, Yamada Asaemon was actually neither a samurai nor an official. His status was that of a Ronin masterless samurai. Ordinarily, taking on a shogunate post would mean becoming a retainer, yet they remained Ronin. This is tied to the circumstances under which the Yamada family inherited the Otameshi Goyo. Originally, the position of Otameshi Goyo was held hereditarily by a man named Yamano Kanjuro. The first Yamada Asaemon, Sadatake, was apprenticed to Yamano Kanjuro and honed his sword testing skills. After Sadatake rose to prominence, Kanjuro's own son was not blessed with sword handling skill. As a result, Sadatake was directly appointed by the shogunate to the Otameshi Goyo role, separate from the Yamano line. Sadatake requested permission to pass this duty down through his own bloodline, and this was granted. Therefore, they were not appointed to an official role as a member of the shogunate's organization. Instead, they were commissioned for the specialized tasks of Otameshi Goyo in carrying out decapitations as outside Ronin with expert skills. This is why they served in the role with the status of Ronin, not as retainers Bakushin. However, since the duty of beheading criminals was originally the responsibility of the magistrate's executioner guards Kubikiri Doshin, why did the shogunate find it necessary to specifically entrust the execution work to them, who were mere Ronin? The ostracized and grueling work of the executioner. The job of the chief executioner was originally meant for the magistrate's executioner guards Kubikiri Doshin, but it involved significant risks and mental strain for them. As a result, the task was delegated to the professional Kaishakunin, Yamada Asaemon. The main risks and mental strain were as follows. Risk of failure. Technical pressure. A strict rule for decapitation was that no more than 2 swings could be delivered. In other words, the head had to be severed in 2 swings or less. A 3rd swing was forbidden. If the executioner failed to sever the head in 2 swings, the rule dictated that the 3rd swing would be a stab to the chest to kill the criminal. This was out of consideration to prevent unnecessary suffering for the condemned, but it simultaneously placed extreme technical pressure on the executioner, allowing for no momentary failure. A mistake would immediately lead to severe criticism from colleagues and superiors, ruining an official's reputation. Spiritual defilement and mental strain. In the society of the time, work involving death and blood was considered to carry defilement kagare. The act of taking a human life itself placed an intense psychological burden shinro, or mental strain on the executioners. The Doshin of the magistrate's offices wanted to avoid this duty, not just because of the technical difficulty, but also because of this heavy mental pressure, which became a major reason for choosing to outsource the work. Decapitation etiquette. During a decapitation, a highly skilled form of etiquette was required. The head had to be not fully severed, but left connected by a thin strip of skin and dropped near the criminal's knees. Errors in this protocol were considered disrespectful and rude. The executioner needed perfect control over both the force and the technique, aiming for the precise location between the third and fourth cervical vertebrae. Constant concentration and flawless skill were demanded. Due to these risks, mental strains, and the need for advanced skill, the magistrate's Doshin requested a substitute, and the heavy responsibility was taken up by the Yamada Asaemon family. Incidentally, among the criminals Yamada Asaemon decapitated was Yoshida Shoin, the charismatic samurai captured during the Ansei Purge as a late Edo period terrorist. So how much did the Yamada Asaemon family actually earn from this execution by proxy business? Surprisingly, they were actually in the negative. This is because Yamada Asaemon would, in fact, pay money to the very criminals whose heads he was cutting off. However, there was a proper reason for this, and underlying it was a sophisticated business model conceived by Asaemon. The executioner's earnings trick. How did Yamada Asaemon secure his livelihood? In fact, he was granted a special privilege precisely because he undertook the unique task of beheading criminals. That was the right to receive the bodies. Yes, he collected the corpses of the criminals he executed. He leveraged these bodies to generate his income. Specifically, his methods included the following. Testing swords. When a daimyo feudal lord wished to test a sword's cutting ability, they would send a request to the Yamada family, who held the Shogunate certified credential of Otameshi Goyo. Upon receiving a request, he would borrow the sword and use the gathered corpses of criminals for the test cutting. For this, he would receive a fee of around 10 urayo, about 600,000 yen, or approximately $4,000 USD, issuing sword appraisal certificates. After performing hundreds, even thousands of test cuts, he developed an ability to appraise and evaluate the quality of a sword. Given the immense trust and value associated with the Yamada Asaemon brand, which was endorsed by the Shogunate, issuing sword appraisal certificates also became a significant source of income. Manufacturing and selling medicine. Furthermore, he sold the internal organs harvested from the corpses as medicine. He would concoct a medicine from the liver of the deceased and sell it as Asaemon Asaemon Pills, which was widely believed to be effective against tuberculosis and became a sensationally popular item in Edo, creating and selling a famous sword ranking book. As a master sword appraiser, he published a book titled Kaiho Kenjaku. This was, in effect, a famous sword ranking book like a Michelin guide for swords today. It became a bestseller during the late Edo period. Swordsmiths from across Japan would visit him for study, hoping to be featured in it. The following year, Asaemon would then travel to conduct on-site test cuts, collecting a judging fee, and thus earning income by publishing the next edition of his famous sword ranking book. With all these ventures, how much did he ultimately earn? Approximately 40,000 ryo. That's about 2.4 billion yen, or approximately $16 million USD in modern terms. He earned a fortune unimaginable for a Ronin. However, a man like Yamada Asaemon, who would behead people, cut up their corpses, and sell their organs as medicine, might seem cruel and inhumane. What kind of person was he truly? The rest will be explained in the next video. If you found this video interesting, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching until the very end today.